Most men crumble when someone tries to manipulate their weaknesses. They react emotionally, they defend themselves desperately, or worse, they allow others to weaponize their vulnerabilities against them. But the Sigma male? He operates on an entirely different frequency. Here's what most people don't understand. When you attempt to control a Sigma through his ailments, his insecurities, or his pain points, you're not engaging with weakness. You're triggering a strategic defense mechanism that's been refined through years of self-mastery and psychological independence. I've spent over a decade studying high-value male archetypes, and I can tell you this with absolute certainty. The way a Sigma responds to manipulation attempts reveals the very essence of his power. These aren't reactions born from ego or emotion. These are calculated, almost surgical responses that leave manipulators confused, frustrated, and ultimately powerless. In this video, I'm going to break down 12 surprising reactions that emerge when people try to exploit a Sigma's vulnerabilities. Some of these will challenge everything you think you know about strength, masculinity, and psychological warfare. By the end, you'll understand why attempting to control a Sigma through his ailments is like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. If you're serious about understanding true masculine independence and psychological sovereignty, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel is dedicated to men who refuse to play by society's manipulative rules. Men who build their power from the inside out. Don't just watch this content. Become part of a community that's redefining what it means to be truly self-sufficient in a world designed to make you dependent. Let's dive into the first surprising reaction. 1. The strategic silence. When someone tries to exploit a Sigma's ailments or vulnerabilities, the first reaction that catches manipulators off guard is his strategic silence. This isn't the silence of weakness or confusion. It's a calculated response that strips the manipulator of their most powerful weapon, your reaction. Here's what happens. Someone discovers something they believe is your weak point. Maybe it's a health issue, a past failure, or an emotional wound. They bring it up, expecting you to defend yourself, explain, or show visible discomfort. But the Sigma, he simply goes quiet. This silence is psychological warfare at its finest. The manipulator needs your reaction to gauge their impact, to calibrate their next move, to feed off your emotional energy. When you give them nothing, they're left standing in a void they created, talking to themselves, revealing more about their intentions than they ever intended. I've seen this play out countless times. A colleague tries to embarrass a Sigma in a meeting by mentioning his recent project failure. Instead of defending or justifying, the Sigma maintains eye contact, nods slightly, and says absolutely nothing. The room becomes uncomfortable, but not for the Sigma. The manipulator starts over-explaining, backtracking, essentially dismantling their own attack. The strategic silence forces others to fill the void with their own insecurities. It's not passive. It's actively refusing to participate in someone else's game. The Sigma understands that explanation is a form of seeking approval, and he's not in that business. This reaction works because it transforms the dynamic entirely. The person who attempted control suddenly finds themselves controlling nothing, speaking into an abyss, and ultimately exposing their own need for validation through your response. 2. The controlled indifference. The second surprising reaction is what I call controlled indifference, and it's devastatingly effective. When someone attempts to use a Sigma's ailments as leverage, he responds with a level of detachment that seems almost superhuman. This isn't about pretending not to care. It's about genuinely recalibrating the importance you assign to others' opinions about your vulnerabilities. The Sigma has already processed his limitations internally. He knows his struggles, his pain points, his weaknesses. Someone pointing them out adds zero new information to his self-awareness. Picture this. Someone at a family gathering brings up your financial struggles, trying to embarrass you in front of everyone. The typical response? Defensiveness, anger, embarrassment. The Sigma's response? A casual shrug and something like, "Yeah, it's been challenging. Pass the salt, please." Then he continues eating. The manipulator expected fireworks. They got a weather report. This controlled indifference communicates something powerful. Your attempt to weaponize my reality has no emotional charge because I've already accepted it, processed it, and integrated it into my journey. What makes this reaction so surprising is its authenticity. The Sigma isn't faking indifference. He's cultivated genuine detachment from external validation. He's done the internal work to separate his worth from his circumstances. When you've truly accepted your current reality, others can't use it against you. This response short-circuits the entire manipulation mechanism. Control requires emotional investment. When you demonstrate that you're not emotionally invested in their opinion of your struggles, their power evaporates instantly. They're left holding a weapon that only works on people who still need external approval. 3. The unexpected disappearance. Here's where things get really interesting. When manipulation attempts intensify around a Sigma's vulnerabilities, he employs one of his most powerful tools: the unexpected disappearance. He simply removes himself from the equation entirely. This isn't running away or avoiding confrontation. It's a strategic withdrawal that demonstrates ultimate control over his own presence, his energy, and his participation in toxic dynamics. The Sigma understands that some battles aren't worth fighting because the war itself is beneath him. Let me give you a concrete example. You're in a workplace where a manager constantly references your health issues to undermine your credibility. Most men would stay and fight, defend their performance, prove their worth. The Sigma, he starts looking for new opportunities and exits without drama, explanation, or fanfare. The manipulator wakes up one day to find their target simply gone. No confrontation, no exit interview, no emotional goodbye, just absence. This creates a vacuum that's psychologically destabilizing for people who derive power from controlling others. What makes this reaction so powerful is its completeness. The Sigma doesn't disappear while still emotionally engaged. He doesn't ghost while secretly hoping they'll reach out. He genuinely moves on, reassigning his energy to environments that deserve it. His physical disappearance mirrors his emotional and psychological departure. This teaches a crucial lesson. Your presence is a gift, not a guarantee. When people weaponize your vulnerabilities, you have every right to withdraw that gift permanently. The Sigma doesn't announce this. He just does it. And the manipulator is left wondering what happened, ultimately forced to confront the emptiness of their own toxic behavior. 4. The emotional detachment. The fourth reaction is perhaps the most misunderstood: emotional detachment. When someone tries to control a Sigma through his ailments, they expect an emotional response: anger, sadness, shame, defensiveness. Instead, they encounter something that feels almost clinical. The Sigma has mastered the art of observing his emotions without being controlled by them. Someone brings up his past trauma, his chronic condition, his personal failure. He acknowledges it factually, almost as if discussing a historical event that happened to someone else. This isn't suppression or denial. It's advanced emotional intelligence. The Sigma has processed his pain privately, thoroughly, and completely. By the time someone tries to weaponize it, the emotional charge has already been neutralized through his internal work. Imagine a scenario. An ex-partner tries to hurt you by bringing up your anxiety disorder in front of new friends. The expected response? Embarrassment, anger, maybe a heated argument. The Sigma's actual response? Yes, I manage anxiety. It's taught me a lot about mental health. Anyway, what were you saying about the game last night? The person attempting manipulation is left completely disarmed. They threw what they thought was a grenade, but it landed like a feather. The Sigma's emotional detachment doesn't give them the explosive reaction they needed to feel powerful. This reaction works because it's rooted in genuine self-acceptance. The Sigma isn't pretending to be unaffected. He genuinely is unaffected because he's already integrated these aspects of himself. He's moved past shame into understanding, past defensiveness into acceptance. When you've truly made peace with your struggles, others can't use them to disturb that peace. 5. The reverse psychology. Now we get into more sophisticated territory. The fifth surprising reaction is reverse psychology, and the Sigma deploys it with surgical precision. When someone tries to control him through his vulnerabilities, he sometimes amplifies them deliberately, completely disarming the attack. This is counterintuitive brilliance. Someone tries to embarrass you about your financial situation. You respond with, "You're absolutely right. I'm completely broke. In fact, it's worse than you think. Want to hear the full story?" Suddenly, the manipulator doesn't know what to do with this information. The power of this approach lies in its unexpectedness. Manipulators rely on shame, on your desire to hide certain truths. When you not only acknowledge but amplify what they're trying to use against you, you've taken their weapon and turned it into a shield. I've watched this play out brilliantly in professional settings. A Sigma dealing with a chronic illness has a colleague who keeps making subtle comments about his energy levels and commitment. Instead of defending, the Sigma addresses the entire team. "You're right to be concerned. My condition does affect my energy. Here's exactly how I manage it and ensure my work stays excellent." The manipulator is left speechless. They expected denial or anger. They got radical transparency that transformed a weakness into a demonstration of professionalism and self-awareness. The attempted control backfired completely. This reaction teaches a powerful principle. Secrets only have power when you're afraid of them being revealed. When you reveal them yourself, on your own terms, with full context, you strip others of the ability to weaponize them. The Sigma understands that ownership of your narrative is the ultimate form of control. 6. The productive isolation. The sixth reaction might be the most transformative, productive isolation. When people attempt to control a Sigma through his ailments, he often responds by channeling that energy into periods of intense, focused solitude that yield remarkable results. This isn't depression or withdrawal. It's strategic retreat for exponential growth. The Sigma recognizes that manipulation attempts often come from environments that don't deserve his energy, so he redirects that energy inward into projects, skills, health improvements, or creative endeavors. Here's how this manifests. Someone in your social circle constantly highlights your professional struggles, trying to make you feel inferior. Instead of engaging in endless defenses, the Sigma reduces contact and spends the next 6 months in focused development, learning new skills, building side projects, improving his craft in isolation. Then he re-emerges, transformed. The person who tried to use his failure as a control mechanism suddenly sees someone who's leveled up entirely. The productive isolation period wasn't about proving anything to them. It was about investing in himself, while they wasted energy on manipulation. What makes this reaction surprising is its outcome. Most people expect someone whose vulnerabilities are exposed to become more dependent, more defensive, more engaged in the drama. The Sigma does the opposite. He becomes more independent, more focused, more detached from external validation. This teaches a crucial lesson about energy management. Every minute spent defending yourself from manipulation is a minute not spent building yourself. The Sigma chooses building. He transforms attempted control into fuel for self-improvement, using others' negativity as motivation to create distance and depth in his own development. 7. The calculated transparency. The seventh reaction is masterful, calculated transparency. When someone tries to exploit a Sigma's ailments, he sometimes responds by being more open about them than the manipulator ever expected, but on his own terms, with full context. and in ways that demonstrate strength rather than weakness. This is different from reverse psychology. This is about controlling the narrative through strategic honesty. The Sigma decides exactly what to share, how to frame it, and what lessons to extract from his struggles in ways that actually enhance his credibility rather than diminish it. Consider this scenario. You're in a business negotiation and someone discovers you had a business failure 3 years ago. They bring it up to undermine your credibility. The Sigma's response? Absolutely. That failure taught me more than any success ever could. Here's exactly what went wrong, what I learned, and how it directly informs my approach now. The manipulator expected embarrassment. They got a masterclass in growth mindset and resilience. The attempt at control transformed into a demonstration of wisdom. This calculated transparency works because it reframes vulnerability as experience, struggles as education, and ailments as part of a larger journey. The Sigma isn't oversharing or seeking sympathy. He's strategically revealing his process in ways that build respect rather than inviting pity. What makes this surprising is the confidence required. Most men hide their struggles, creating secrets that others can exploit. The Sigma selectively reveals his struggles, but always with the lessons attached, always with the growth demonstrated, always with the understanding that his journey, including the difficult parts, is what makes him valuable. This reaction communicates something profound. I'm not ashamed of where I've been because it created who I am. Try to use my past against me, and I'll show you how it's actually my greatest asset. 8. The power of boundaries. The 8th reaction is fundamental yet often overlooked. The power of boundaries. When someone attempts to control a Sigma through his ailments, his response is to establish and enforce boundaries so clear, so firm, that further manipulation becomes impossible. This isn't aggression, it's precision. The Sigma identifies exactly which lines have been crossed and communicates consequences without emotion, negotiation, or room for interpretation. His boundaries aren't requests, they're statements of reality. Here's what this looks like in practice. Someone in your family repeatedly brings up your mental health struggles at gatherings, using them to diminish you in front of others. Most men would either tolerate it or explode. The Sigma pulls the person aside and says, "My mental health is not a topic for public discussion. If you bring it up again, I'll leave immediately and we won't interact for 6 months. This isn't negotiable." Then, and this is crucial, he follows through without hesitation. The next time it happens, he leaves. No argument, no explanation, no second chance. The boundary wasn't a threat, it was information about reality. What makes this reaction surprising is its consistency. The Sigma doesn't set boundaries emotionally in the heat of the moment and then fail to enforce them. He sets them deliberately and enforces them mechanically. This teaches others that his boundaries aren't flexible based on their feelings, circumstances, or manipulation tactics. The power of this approach lies in its clarity. There's no ambiguity, no room for gaslighting, no opportunity for the manipulator to claim they didn't know or didn't mean it that way. The Sigma has defined the relationship's parameters, and participation is optional for others, but non-negotiable in terms of rules. This reaction transforms the entire dynamic from reactive to proactive. Instead of constantly defending against manipulation, the Sigma has created a structure where manipulation simply results in automatic consequences. 9. The selective vulnerability. The 9th reaction is perhaps the most sophisticated: selective vulnerability. When people try to control a Sigma through his ailments, he responds by being strategically vulnerable, but only with people who've earned that trust, completely cutting off manipulators from genuine access to his inner world. This creates a fascinating paradox for manipulators. They see the Sigma being open, honest, and vulnerable with certain people, which makes them want that access even more. But the Sigma has become a master at identifying who deserves his authenticity and who gets only his surface-level interaction. Think about it this way: someone at work tries to use your personal struggles to undermine you. From that moment forward, they get the professional version of you, competent, polite, but completely impenetrable. Meanwhile, you're building deeper connections with trustworthy colleagues, sharing your journey, being fully human. The manipulator sees this and realizes they've been permanently locked out of your real self. This is devastating for people who derive power from having leverage over others. They realize they've lost something they can never regain: authentic access. The Sigma isn't punishing them emotionally, he's simply rational about trust. You demonstrated you weaponize vulnerability, so you no longer receive it. What makes this reaction powerful is its discrimination. The Sigma doesn't become closed off to everyone after being manipulated. He becomes more discerning. He actually deepens his connections with quality people while simultaneously becoming a fortress to manipulators. This teaches an essential truth. Vulnerability is a gift, not a universal offering. The Sigma protects his authentic self by sharing it only with people who honor it. Everyone else gets the version of him that's immune to manipulation, professional, cordial, and completely invulnerable. The manipulator watches from the outside, seeing the depth they could have had access to, realizing their attempt at control cost them the only thing that actually mattered: genuine connection. 10. The mirror effect. The 10th reaction is psychologically brilliant: the mirror effect. When someone tries to control a Sigma through his ailments, he sometimes responds by reflecting their behavior back to them in ways that force self-awareness without direct confrontation. This isn't petty revenge, it's educational psychology. The Sigma doesn't attack the manipulator, he simply holds up a mirror that shows them exactly what they're doing, often by asking strategic questions or making observations that create uncomfortable clarity. Picture this: someone constantly brings up your past relationship failures to make you feel inadequate. Instead of defending, the Sigma calmly asks, "I've noticed you bring up my past relationships frequently. What do you think that pattern says about what you're trying to accomplish in our conversations?" The manipulator is suddenly forced to examine their own behavior. The conversation has shifted from your vulnerability to their motivation. Most people have never had their manipulation tactics directly but calmly identified, and the discomfort is profound. Another example: a family member uses your health condition to portray you as weak. The Sigma responds, "It's interesting how often you frame my health challenges as character flaws. Do you think that reflects more on my situation or on how you view people with health struggles?" This mirror effect works because it doesn't fight manipulation with aggression, it fights it with awareness. The Sigma forces the manipulator to see their own reflection, to confront what they're actually doing, to face the ugliness of their tactics without the Sigma having to explicitly call them out. What makes this surprising is its composure. The manipulator expected you to be defensive about your ailments. Instead, you're making them defensive about their behavior. The power dynamic has completely inverted, and they didn't see it coming. This reaction teaches that sometimes the best defense isn't explaining yourself, it's making others explain themselves. 11. The strategic redirection. The 11th reaction showcases the Sigma's mental agility: strategic redirection. When someone attempts to control him through his ailments, he doesn't engage with the manipulation at all. He simply redirects the conversation or situation entirely, leaving the manipulator talking to empty air. This is conversational judo. The manipulator throws an attack aimed at your vulnerability, expecting you to receive it, react to it, defend against it. Instead, you sidestep completely and move the interaction in a direction you control. Here's how this plays out. You're in a meeting and someone brings up your recent project failure, trying to undermine your current proposal. Most men would defend the past project or try to separate it from the current discussion. The Sigma says, that's in the past. What matters now is the data supporting this new direction. Let's look at the quarterly projections. The redirection is so smooth, so confident, that the room follows his lead. The attempted manipulation becomes irrelevant, not because it was defeated, but because it was made obsolete by forward momentum. This works in personal contexts too. Someone tries to bring up your medical condition to make you feel incapable. You respond, "Speaking of health, have you seen the new research on preventive care? Fascinating stuff." You've acknowledged the topic exists but refused to engage with it on their terms, redirecting to something neutral or even advantageous. What makes this reaction surprising is its refusal to play defense. The Sigma understands that engaging with manipulation, even to defend against it, gives it validity. By redirecting, he's saying, that's not the conversation we're having. This is. The strategic redirection demonstrates ultimate frame control. The manipulator thought they controlled the interaction by bringing up your vulnerability. The Sigma proves they control nothing by determining what the interaction is actually about. 12. The internal fortification. The 12th and final reaction is the foundation for all others, internal fortification. When people attempt to control a Sigma through his ailments, what they're actually encountering is years of internal work that has made him psychologically unshakable. This isn't a reaction in the moment, it's the result of a lifestyle. The Sigma has spent countless hours in self-reflection, therapy, meditation, journaling, or whatever practices work for him. He's confronted his demons privately and repeatedly. He's accepted his limitations, understood his patterns, and built an internal fortress that external attacks simply cannot penetrate. When someone tries to shame him about his anxiety disorder, they're not encountering raw vulnerability. They're encountering someone who's spent 3 years in therapy understanding that anxiety, someone who's read 50 books on mental health, someone who's developed coping mechanisms and self-compassion. The manipulator brings a knife to a philosophical fortress. This internal fortification manifests as unshakable calm. The Sigma knows himself better than anyone else possibly could. Someone pointing out his flaws or struggles is bringing him information he's already thoroughly processed, integrated, and made peace with. What makes this surprising to manipulators is the depth they encounter. They expected surface-level defenses they could break through. Instead, they find layers of self-awareness, acceptance, and genuine inner strength that took years to build. The internal fortification isn't about becoming invulnerable. It's about becoming so intimately familiar with your vulnerabilities that others' attempts to exploit them feel almost quaint. You've already been harder on yourself than they could ever be, but you've also been more compassionate with yourself than they'll ever understand. This final reaction reveals the truth. You can't control someone who's already mastered controlling himself. The Sigma's greatest defense against external manipulation is his internal work that never stops, never completes, but continuously strengthens the foundation of his psychological sovereignty. These 12 reactions aren't just defensive mechanisms. They're expressions of a fundamental truth that most men never grasp. Your vulnerabilities only become weaknesses when you allow others to define them as such. The Sigma male has mastered something that eludes the majority. The understanding that control is an illusion others desperately try to maintain, and the moment you stop participating in their game, their power evaporates completely. Every attempt to manipulate his ailments becomes an opportunity for him to demonstrate his psychological sovereignty. What separates the Sigma from other men isn't the absence of pain, struggle, or vulnerability. It's his refusal to let these human experiences become leverage points for external control. He's done the internal work that most men avoid, the uncomfortable excavation of his own psychology, the brutal honesty about his limitations, and the strategic fortification of his mental and emotional boundaries. Here's what I want you to understand. These reactions aren't personality traits you're born with. They're skills you develop through conscious practice, painful self-reflection, and the willingness to walk away from people, situations, and dynamics that demand your submission as the price of admission. If this content resonated with you, if you see yourself in these reactions or aspire to develop them, then subscribing to this channel isn't optional. It's essential. We're building a library of knowledge specifically designed for men who understand that true power comes from internal sovereignty, not external validation. The manipulation tactics people use don't change, but your responses to them can evolve dramatically. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and commit to your own psychological independence. The world needs more men who can't be controlled through their pain, manipulated through their struggles, or weaponized against themselves. Be that man. I'll see you in the next video.